I have often observed that murder, like music, prefers a dramatic entrance. On the evening in question, drama arrived precisely at 9 minutes past 11, announced not by a scream, as one might vulgarly expect, but by a most improper silence. We were gathered at the second body problem, that peculiarly modern retreat perched above the Thames, where London's intelligentsia went to feel both clever and decadent in equal measure. The establishment styled itself as a philosophical salon, though in truth it was a converted riverside townhouse filled with velvet chairs, speculative physicists, minor aristocrats, and the sort of wealth that enjoys disguising itself as ideas. The host, Sir Alistair Fenton Blythe, had insisted the evening be intimate. Closed circle, he called it. 12 guests only, all personally invited, and all sworn to discretion. There would be dinner, debate, and afterward a private unveiling. Some object of significance, Sir Alistair hinted, would reframe how we understand consequence. I confess I did not understand what he meant. I rarely do when clever men are determined to be obscure. What I did understand with instant clarity was the expression on Madame Roux-Lemaire's face when she looked up from her champagne flute and saw her husband lying very still on the Persian rug. "Mon Dieu," she whispered, not loudly, not theatrically, just enough for the words to slip into the room and poison it. At first, no one moved. Dr. Julian Markham, whose lectures on ethical paradoxes had recently sold out the Royal Society, froze mid-sentence, one hand lifted as though still shaping an argument in the air. One Lady Penelope Grant stood with her back to the fire, her smile fixed, brittle as spun sugar. Even Captain Hugh Barrington, late of the Royal Navy and fond of telling us so, remained seated, staring at the body with the vague irritation of a man inconvenienced. The body, alas, did not share their composure. Étienne Roux-Lemaire lay on his side near the low table, his limbs arranged in a manner that suggested not rest, but interruption. His eyes were open, his mouth too, as though he had been about to say something clever and decided against it at the last possible moment. I remember thinking most absurdly that he had spilt his wine. Only then did the smell reach me. Not blood, not at first. Bitter almonds. There is something about that scent which carries an intellectual insult. It announces not passion, not rage, but calculation. It says this was thought about. Someone, Miss Cordelia Shaw, the novelist, made a soft sound, like a breath accidentally dropped. Another guest laughed once, sharply, and then clapped a hand over his mouth in horror at himself. Madame Roux-Lemaire did not scream. She did not rush forward. She merely sat down very slowly, as though the room had lost one of its dimensions. "Étienne does not faint," she said, with the quiet certainty of a woman who knows the shape of her marriage, "and he does not drink liqueurs." Sir Alistair found his voice at last. Unfortunately, he found it all at once. "Everyone remain where they are," he barked, attempting authority and achieving only volume. This is an unfortunate situation, but we must be rational. Captain Barrington, you have experience. With bodies, yes," the captain interrupted gruffly. But usually ones that come apart more honestly." He stood and knelt beside Roux-Lemaire, touching nothing, observing much. His jaw tightened. "He's dead." The words fell flat as facts often do when they have no consideration for manners. Dr. Markham recovered next. He always did, his mind trained to treat catastrophe as merely a larger puzzle. "Poison," he said briskly. "You all smell it. Cyanide, most likely. Quick, efficient. Someone has had access to the drinks." "That is impossible," Sir Alistair snapped. "The bar has been attended all evening." "By whom?" Lady Grant asked sweetly. Sir Alistair hesitated. In that hesitation, the room shifted. Alliances trembled. Eyes began to measure one another, not for wit, but for threat. I confess, dear listener, that I might have panicked. I am not built for sudden death in elegant rooms, but I prefer my murders at a distance, preferably historical. But then, with a sensation very like relief, I heard a familiar, fastidious sigh beside me. "Ah," said Hercule Poirot, "already, you see, they make the mistake." He stood apart from the others, immaculate as ever, his patent leather shoes unscuffed, his moustache untroubled by tragedy. While the rest of us had turned inward, toward fear, toward accusation, Poirot gazed outward, as though the room itself were speaking and he alone were polite enough to listen. "Mistake?" I whispered. "Yes, mon ami, they look at the body, I look at the people." He surveyed them now. Sir Alistair, red-faced and furious, Lady Grant, serene and unreadable, Dr. Markham already constructing a theory, Captain Barrington practical and closed, Miss Shaw pale but attentive, Madame Roux-Lemaire still, silent, and watching nothing at all. 12 guests, 12 secrets. And, Poirot added softly, they assume there is only one problem. He stepped forward at last, his voice gentle but perfectly audible. "Mesdames et messieurs," he said, inclining his head, "I beg you, do not touch anything further. And if you will forgive me, do not speak yet of guilt or innocence or poison." Sir Alistair bristled. "And who exactly are you to give orders in my house?" Poirot smiled, a small, precise smile. "I am Hercule Poirot," he said, "and before this night is over, I think you will all be very glad that I was invited." A murmur ran through the room. Recognition, surprise, calculation. Poirot turned then, quite deliberately, and looked not at the dead man, but at the low table beside him. One glass was overturned, another stood upright, a third, untouched, waited at the edge, its surface perfectly still. Poirot's eyes narrowed, just a little. "Because," he murmured, more to himself than to us, "this affair, I suspect, is not only about the first body." And somewhere in the house, though none of us yet knew it, something else was already missing. Poirot moved with the mild impatience of a man straightening a picture frame. He did not kneel, nor did he reach toward the corpse. He approached the cluster of glasses as though they were witnesses, and his gaze travelled from stem to stem, from the thin meniscus of liquid to the faint crescent of lipstick on one rim. "Stay," he said to Sir Alistair, when the baronet made a movement toward the sideboard. "One, you will do nothing useful by fetching brandy for the living while there is poison in the room for the dead." Sir Alistair flushed. "Do you suggest my staff?" "I suggest nothing yet," Poirot replied. "I observe." He nodded to Captain Barrington. "And you, Captain, you have done the sensible thing?" "You have not touched him," Dr. Markham began. "If cyanide—" Poirot lifted a hand. "Doctor, when a man is dead, it is not the time to show one's cleverness. It is the time to show one's discipline." He turned slightly toward me. "My friend, watch the faces. That is where the truth begins." I obeyed. Madame Roux-Lemaire stared past her husband as if he were an unfortunate ornament. Miss Cordelia Shaw held her hands together too tightly. Lady Penelope Grant's fan rested closed in her fingers, but its tip tapped once against her wrist. But Sir Alistair's gaze flicked repeatedly toward the heavy double doors at the far end of the salon. Poirot followed that glance. "Those doors," he said, "they lead where?" "To my study," Sir Alistair answered. "It is private." "Of course it is private. That is why it has doors." Poirot's tone remained polite. "And they have been closed all evening?" "Yes, until the unveiling." "The unveiling," Poirot murmured. We were promised an object that reframes consequence. Sir Alistair bristled. Must we discuss my amusements at a moment like— At a moment like this, we discuss everything, Poirot said. He walked to the doors and laid 2 fingers lightly against the brass handle. It is warm. There is a fire within, Sir Alistair snapped. I keep the study heated. Poirot nodded, then looked down at the thin line where door met carpet. A pale thread clung there. With the tip of his handkerchief, he lifted it. A thread, he said softly. From someone's clothing? Miss Shaw's voice came out thin. Perhaps. Poirot's eyes moved quickly over sleeves and hems, then settled on Sir Alistair's shoes. Near the welt, a dusting of something chalky caught the light. Poirot's smile held no charm. Sir Alistair, you will tell me who besides yourself has been in that study tonight. In that study? No one, Sir Alistair insisted. Poirot spread his hands. Then the study is haunted, and if it is haunted, we are in trouble because ghosts have no respect for invitations. Lady Grant gave a low laugh. Oh, do be serious. I am serious, madame. Poirot turned to the room. Until the police arrive, we behave as if we are already in their presence. No one leaves this house. No one goes upstairs. No one touches the glasses, the decanters, the sideboard, the telephone, anything. We are in a closed circle, then let us keep it closed. Sir Alistair began to protest, but Captain Barrington stepped forward, shoulders squaring. You heard him? The baronet's indignation met the captain's solidity and, for the moment, lost. Madame Roux-Lemaire spoke at last. He did not mean to come tonight. All heads turned. He despised Sir Alistair's little games, she continued. He said the salon was a circus. He came only because I insisted, because I believed it would be useful. Useful, Poirot repeated. Useful for what, madam? She met his gaze directly. For leverage. A quiet discomfort moved through the room. Dr. Markham's eyes narrowed. Miss Shaw swallowed. Poirot inclined his head. A motive already perfumes the air, but we do not yet know whose. He stopped a respectful distance from the body. Madame, your husband drank from which glass? I do not know, she said, and a tremor entered her composure. I was speaking with Lady Grant. Etienne was by the table. Poirot turned to Lady Grant. You spoke with Madame about what? The usual, Lady Grant said pleasantly. Men, money. And did you observe Monsieur Roux-Lemaire? Only that he was bored. Poirot asked gently. Who poured the drinks? There was a tray, Miss Shaw said quickly. The barman, Mr. Sloane, brought it in. We helped ourselves. Dr. Markham added, 3 glasses. I took one, Sir Alistair took one. And Roux-Lemaire, and you, Doctor, Poirot interrupted. You drank. A sip, Markham admitted. Do you feel unwell? No. And you see, Sir Alistair. I hardly touched it, Sir Alistair said, too quickly. Poirot looked down at the 3 glasses, one overturned, one half full, one full and untouched. He lifted his eyes, and in them I saw a clean certainty, as though a pattern had just aligned. Very well, he said softly. Then we begin at the beginning. Not with the poison, with the intention. As he spoke, the heavy double doors behind him gave a minute click, the sound of a latch settling into place. As though somewhere in the private study someone had just locked us more firmly into our circle. Sir Alistair spun pale now. Barrington strode to the doors and tried the handle. It would not turn. Poirot adjusted his cuffs. You see, he murmured, someone is to control the stage. Captain Barrington put his shoulder to the study door as though it were an enemy hatch. But the wood only shuddered and held. Sir Alistair, so fond of command moments ago, now made small, helpless circles with his hands. This is absurd, he said. My study locks from the inside only." "Then," said Poirot, "someone is inside, or someone has arranged that it seems so. Either way, we do not smash your doors, because that would delight the one who wishes confusion." With that composure which always irritated the impatient, he spoke to us as if we were still debating over coffee. "Mesdames et messieurs, the murderer wants more than death. He wants movement, people rushing, touching, trampling. We shall disappoint him. No one leaves this room. No one touches the sideboard, the glasses, the corpse. We are a closed circle. We remain one." Lady Grant's fan paused. "And what of the killer? Shall we sit politely while he hides in there?" "We make no assumptions about hiding," Poirot replied. "The locked door is a message. We must read it, not answer it with violence." He crossed to the terrace window. Beyond it, the Thames lay like ink, and rain had begun to fall in a fine sheet. Poirot examined the latch, the sill, the carpet beneath. "No one has come in from outside," he said. Miss Shaw asked, "How can you be certain?" "Because the rain is an honest witness," Poirot said. "It leaves signatures on shoes, on hems, yet the carpet here is dry. If someone entered, it was before the rain, but the lock clicked only a moment ago." Captain Barrington went to the telephone and lifted the receiver. After a second he frowned. "Lines dead." A ripple of unease went through the room. Poirot nodded. "Our circle tightens, and the murderer delays the police, and he locks the study. He wants time." Sir Alister's face darkened. "Or my staff has blundered." "Staff?" Poirot said very gently. "Where are they?" "In the kitchen," Sir Alister admitted. "We dismissed them after dinner." Poirot's eyes rested on him a fraction too long. "Then they have not yet seen the body. Good. Hastings, my friend, go with the captain. Bring the butler and the barman to the threshold only. Observe their faces." I disliked leaving Poirot, but duty is duty. The kitchen was bright and smelled of soap and roasted meat. Mr. Crane, the butler, stood with a towel in his hands. The barman, Sloane, lean and careful, looked up sharply. "There has been an accident," Barrington said. Sloane's eyes went at once to the captain. "An accident, sir?" "A death," I said, and regretted my bluntness. Crane went pale, but did not move. Sloane's mouth opened, then closed. His gaze dropped to Barrington's hands, as though he expected to see a weapon. "Come," Barrington ordered, "and mind you do as you're told." We returned to the salon, and I saw at once that something had shifted. Poirot stood near the low table, listening to Sir Alister, who was speaking too much. "I hardly touched the drink," the baronet protested. "Roux-Lemaire snatched the glass." Madame Roux-Lemaire's voice cut in. "He did no such thing." Poirot raised a hand. "One at a time. Mr. Crane, Mr. Sloane, stand there. Look, yes, but do not approach." Crane's gaze fell upon the body. He inhaled sharply, yet the shock on his face was oddly muted, as if recognition had arrived before surprise. Sloane blinked rapidly and whispered, "Ah, God!" Poirot watched them both as though weighing coins. "Mr. Sloane, you brought the tray of drinks." "Yes, sir." "How many glasses?" "3. "And the bottle?" "A decanter of kirsch, sir, from Sir Alister's cabinet." Sir Alister snapped. "That cabinet is in the study. It is locked." Poirot's eyes travelled to the stubborn doors. "Ah, locked, like many things tonight." He leaned nearer to the table, not touching, merely breathing. "Kirsch," he murmured. "Cherries, almonds. Convenient, n'est-ce pas? A smell that invites a conclusion." Dr. Markham seized it. "Cyanide, the bitter almond odour." Poirot's gaze sharpened. "Not everyone can smell cyanide, Doctor. So the murderer chooses a spirit whose perfume makes the room do his thinking. Miss Shaw's fingers tightened. Lady Grant's fan stilled, and I saw a faint tremor at the corner of her mouth. Poirot asked softly, "When you served Mr. Sloane, did you pour?" "No, sir. I set the glasses and decanter. The guests poured themselves." "Excellent," Poirot said. "Then the poison may not be in the liquid alone. It may be on the rim, on the stem, on the fingertips that guided the glass." A silence fell that felt heavier than the body on the rug. People glanced down at their hands as though they belonged to someone else. Sir Alistair swallowed audibly. Poirot's voice lowered, intimate, as if coaxing a confession. "Now, mes amis, we do not begin with who hated Monsieur Roux-Lemaire. Many hated him, perhaps. We begin with something smaller, something truer. Who touched which glass, and when? Because the smallest lie tonight is more dangerous than the poison, and it will lead me,
as surely as a thread leads to a seam, to the one who stitched this crime." As he spoke, the locked study door gave no sound at all. Yet I could not rid myself of the sensation that on the other side something, or someone, was listening just as carefully in the dark. Still. Poirot drew one of Sir Alistair's dining chairs into the centre of the room with an air of arranging a séance rather than an inquiry. He sat, smoothing his cuffs, and invited the rest of us to remain standing, as though standing would remind us that our words must not lounge. "Captain Barrington," he said, "you will watch the doors to the hall and the terrace. Not because I think someone will flee, no one can, but because the mind, when frightened, forgets its manners." Barrington placed himself with his back to the corridor. Mr. Crane hovered like a solemn shadow.
but while Sloane's eyes kept darting to the study door. Poirot looked at Dr. Markham. "Doctor, you said you drank a sip. Show me the glass you used." Markham hesitated, then pointed. "That one. Half full?" "And you, Sir Alistair?" "I hardly drank at all," Sir Alistair said too quickly. "I took this one." He indicated the overturned glass, as though its position might excuse him. "Overturned," Poirot murmured. "By whom?" "When I saw him fall, I—" Sir Alistair stopped, aware at last that panic sounded like guilt. Poirot's gaze travelled to Madame Roux-Lemaire. "And your husband? He took the remaining glass, the one untouched." Madame Roux-Lemaire's composure wavered. "How could you know that?" "Because," Poirot said gently, "death is not cooperative. Your husband fell here, but his hand caught the cloth." He indicated the runner, slightly skewed. "I.e., one glass is overturned, one is disturbed, one stands like a soldier. The soldier was not in the hand when the battle began." Miss Shaw whispered, "Then which glass killed him?" Poirot spread his hands. "That is what we shall discover, but first each of you will tell me exactly where you were when the drinks arrived and what you touched. We begin with the easiest truth, the timeline." He turned to Miss Shaw. "Mademoiselle Cordelia, writers steal faces. Where were you?" "Near the bookcase," she said, flushing, "speaking with Dr. Markham." "And when the tray came?" "I saw Mr. Sloane set it down. Sir Alistair spoke about consequence. Then Monsieur Roux-Lemaire laughed, quite loudly." Madame Roux-Lemaire's eyes flashed. "He laughed because Sir Alistair was pompous." Poirot nodded. "And then?" Cordelia hesitated.
Lady Grant offered him the decanter. He refused her and poured for himself. Lady Grant's fan opened with a soft snap. "How delightful, Miss Shaw, that you remember my hands." Poirot's eyes sharpened. "Lady Grant, you did offer?" "I may have," she said. We were all taking drinks. Must I be accused of hospitality? No one accuses, Poirot replied. We ask. He turned to Madame Roux-Lemaire. You were speaking with Lady Grant? Yes. About leverage, Poirot reminded her, and she did not deny it. Sir Alistair burst out. This is intolerable. He came to threaten me. Poirot's tone cooled. Nothing is irrelevant, Sir Alistair, especially not when the man who threatened you is dead on your carpet. Captain Barrington spoke. Someone else was at the sideboard earlier.
I saw movement, reflected in the mirror. All eyes went to the gilt mirror above the mantel. It had seemed merely decorative. Now it was an accomplice. Who? Sir Alistair demanded. Barrington's brow furrowed. I couldn't swear. The person kept to the edge, but I remember pale cuffs. Poirot's gaze flicked, quick as a needle, to Dr. Markham's immaculate shirt front, then to Sir Alistair's rolled sleeves, then to Lady Grant's long gloves. Pale cuffs, Poirot repeated, and the study door, and the telephone line. We have perhaps not one action but a series, each designed to narrow our choices. He rose and crossed to the study doors. Mr. Crane, this lock works only from inside. Yes, monsieur. A thumb turn on the interior. No key. Poirot nodded. Then we will not break it yet. We will understand it. He moved to the skirting board beside the door and pointed. Here, fresh scuffing. A heel has pressed, hard, as though someone stood close and listened. Lady Grant's eyes narrowed. You think someone is in there? I think someone wanted us to think so, Poirot said, but I think something else. If Sir Alistair's cabinet holds the kirsch, then someone required access. If no one entered the study tonight, then someone accessed it before the party began. Sir Alistair's face went an unhealthy grey. That cabinet also holds other things. Such as your unveiling, Poirot murmured. He looked straight at Mr. Crane. How many servants remain in the house? Only myself and the cook, monsieur, Crane said. And the maid, Elsie. Oh, but she went upstairs to lay out the guests' wraps. Poirot's eyes softened for a moment, then hardened again. Then we bring Elsie down. Upstairs is where one hides, and downstairs is where one lies. Hastings, my friend, you will fetch her, and take care. Do not go alone. Captain Barrington moved at once, but Poirot stopped him with a glance and pointed to Sloane. You, Mr. Sloane, will accompany them. The kitchen has knives. I prefer them accounted for. Sloane swallowed and nodded. We went up the narrow staircase, the carpet muffling our steps. Halfway, Sloane's breathing grew loud and Barrington's hand hovered near his pocket as if he missed a revolver. At the landing, we found Elsie not in the cloakroom, but crouched by the linen cupboard, clutching coats to her chest like a shield. Her eyes were wide. "Oh, sir," she whispered.
Someone's been in the study. There's a window open, and a silver thing. It's gone." We brought Elsie downstairs between us, scarcely able to walk. Her cap had slipped, and a curl clung to her temple. She kept repeating, "I didn't touch nothing, sir. Truly I didn't," as if guilt seeped through walls. Poirot met us at the foot of the stairs. He took in her disarray and the others, and his expression did not change. "Calm yourself, ma petite," he said. "You have seen something. Then you will tell it slowly, so that your words may be useful." Elsie swallowed. "I was laying out the wraps, sir, like Mr. Crane said, and I heard, like a little scrape, not loud, like someone shifting a chair. So I went to see, and the study door was shut, as always, but I heard a creak, like from inside." Sir Alistair lunged forward.
"Why, you listened at my door?" Poirot lifted a finger. "Later, Sir Alistair. Elsie, continue." "I looked round the corner," Elsie whispered, "and the window at the far end of the passage, by the landing, was open a crack. It's always stuck, that one, so I noticed. And there was a cold draught. Then I saw on the floor by the skirting something shiny, like silver, like a little metal star. A cufflink, Lady Grant said promptly. No, madame, Poirot corrected mildly. A cufflink does not lie by a skirting board as if it has jumped from a sleeve in fright. Elsie, you touched it? Elsie shook her head violently. No, sir, I was going to call Mr. Crane, but then I heard another sound, like someone turning something, and I ran. Oh, and then the door downstairs clicked and everyone started shouting and I hid. Poirot's gaze slid to the locked study door. So, a window open upstairs, a silver object on the floor, a sound as of turning. He turned to Sir Alistair. Your study has also a window? Yes, Sir Alistair said stiffly. It faces the river, but it cannot be reached without what? Poirot asked gently. A ladder, Sir Alistair snapped, or climbing like a monkey. Captain Barrington spoke. There's a service stair at the back. A man could go out to the terrace roof from the second-floor corridor. I've seen these houses. Sir Alistair's mouth tightened. There is no roof access. Poirot gave him a small smile. When men say there is none, it means only they have never needed it. Oh, we shall verify. He returned to the low table and the 3 glasses, as though reminding us the first crime remained with us, watching. Dr. Markham, he said, you drank a sip and you live. Sir Alistair says he hardly drank and he lives. Monsieur Roux-Lemaire is dead. Therefore, either he drank from a different glass than we think, or the poison was applied in a manner that required something unique to him. Madame Roux-Lemaire's voice came sharp. Unique? You mean his mouth? Poirot's eyes softened. I mean his habits. Madame, did your husband smoke? Yes, she said. Cigarettes. Always. Poirot looked toward the mantel. And tonight, did he smoke? Miss Shaw nodded quickly. He asked for an ashtray. Sir Alistair refused, said it offended the salon. Sir Alistair spluttered. It does! And the smell... Yet the smell of death is acceptable, Poirot murmured. He crossed to the small side table where a glass dish of sugared almonds sat. It was disturbed. One almond lay on the cloth like a dropped pearl. Poirot did not touch it. He simply leaned close and inhaled. Kirsch and almonds, he said. A theme. Someone wishes the air itself to chant cyanide until we obey. But there is another scent beneath, faint, chemical, like the inside of a matchbox. Dr. Markham frowned. Phosphorus? Perhaps, said Poirot, or simply mischief. He turned to Sloane. When you set down the tray, did you wipe the rims of the glasses? Sloane blinked. No, sir. They were clean. And the decanter, Poirot continued. Did you bring it from the study yourself? Yes, sir. Mr. Crane told me to fetch it before the guests came in.
It's the cabinet was open already. Crane's face remained still, but his eyes flickered once, quickly, towards Sir Alistair. Poirot saw it. Mr. Crane, he said softly, who opened the cabinet? Crane's hands tightened on his towel. Sir Alistair, monsieur. Sir Alistair's indignation flared, convenient heat to hide behind. Naturally, I open my own cabinet. I have nothing to hide. Poirot inclined his head. Then you will not mind if, when we open your study, we find it undisturbed. The baronet hesitated, and in that hesitation the whole room seemed to listen. Lady Grant's fan tapped once. Madame Roux-Lemaire's lips pressed into a line so thin it seemed she had swallowed her grief. Poirot addressed us all. In a closed system, the movement of one object disturbs the path of another. Tonight, a death disturbs many paths.
The murderer believes he can predict them. He has locked doors, cut lines, opened windows. He plays at physics. I play at psychology. He looked at the corpse at last, only once, without drama. And Monsieur Roux-Lemaire I think, was killed not for what he had done, but for what he was about to do. As he spoke, from somewhere above us, there came the faintest thud, soft, muffled, like a suitcase dropped on a bed. Every head lifted, even Poirot's eyes sharpened, and his voice became quiet. "Ah," he said, "now the house answers." The thud came again, heavier, followed by a quick scrape as though something were dragged across a floor. Captain Barrington's hand went to his pocket by instinct. Sir Alister's went to his throat. Poirot did neither. He merely tilted his head, listening with the delicate concentration of a man detecting a false note. "That," he said softly, "was not the settling of an old house. It was the impatience of a living one." Barrington took 2 steps toward the stairs, and Poirot stopped him with a look. "Captain, if we rush, we do as the murderer wishes, but we cannot ignore. We shall go orderly." He pointed. "You, Captain, you, Mr. Crane, and Hastings with me. Mr. Sloane stays with the others. No one leaves the salon." We mounted the staircase, our footsteps loud in the hush. On the landing, Elsie hovered behind the balustrade, clutching herself as if she might fly apart. Poirot touched her shoulder as we passed. "Courage, ma petite. Fear is useful only when it makes one see." The corridor above smelled of polish and damp wool from the coats. But the window Elsie had mentioned stood ajar, a thin ribbon of rain-cold air slipping in. The curtain moved, restless. Barrington closed it at once. "Which room?" he whispered. Poirot pointed to the guest chamber at the far end. Its door was half shut. A line of light lay under it. Crane's voice was low. "That room should be empty." Poirot nodded. "Then it will not be for long." Barrington eased the door open. The room was dim, lit only by a bedside lamp. The wardrobe door hung open, and at its foot lay a leather valise, overturned, its contents spilled. Papers, a silk scarf, a small velvet case. On the carpet beside it crouched a young man in a dark suit, clutching something that gleamed dully. At the sound of the door he started, eyes wide. "Don't move," Barrington growled. The man froze, then set the object down. It was a silver device, about the size of a book, with a hinged lid and strange markings along its edge, made too beautiful for a mere tool. Poirot stepped in as though entering a drawing-room. "Ah," he said almost affectionately. "So this is the unveiling." The young man's lips parted. I didn't kill anyone." "No?" Poirot's tone remained gentle. "Then you are fortunate. Tell me your name." "Leonard Voss. I was hired. By Sir Alister." Crane stiffened. "Sir?" Barrington barked. "Hired for what?" Voss's gaze flicked to the device. "To deliver it discreetly and keep it secure until the guests were assembled." Poirot crouched, not to touch, but to look. His eyes traced the hinges, the faint scratches near the clasp, the tiny bead of wax on one corner. "Secure," he murmured, "yet you have left it on the floor." Voss flushed. "Someone came in. I heard steps."
I panicked. I hid in the wardrobe. Barrington yanked the wardrobe wider. It held only hangers. "You say you heard steps. When?" "Just now," Voss said quickly. "After the shouting downstairs. I thought Sir Alister had come. Then I heard a click, like a lock turning, and I knew it wasn't him." Poirot's eyes lifted. "A lock turning? Where?" "The study," Voss whispered. "Across the hall. I was told never to go near it, but I heard the turn. Then the thud, like something dropped." Poirot exchanged a glance with Barrington. "The house has 2 conversations," he said quietly. "One in the salon, one in the corridor." Crane cleared his throat. "Monsieur Poirot, should we fetch Sir Alister?" "No," Poirot replied at once. "Not yet. Mr. Voss will come with us. Captain, search this room, visually only. Note what is out of place. Barrington's eyes swept the bedside table. The lamp's on. Someone wanted light. And the window, Poirot added. It was opened to admit someone, or to admit a story. He turned to me. Hastings, look at the valise, the papers. Do you see envelopes, seals, anything torn? I bent, careful, and saw a bundle tied with string, one end snapped as if cut in haste. On the carpet lay a fragment of red sealing wax, crushed. Wax, I said. Poirot nodded, eyes bright now. Messages, then, threats perhaps, or proofs. Monsieur Roux-Lemaire spoke of leverage, Sir Alistair spoke of consequence, and this device is delivered like a crown jewel. Voss's voice rose, pleading. I swear I didn't poison anyone. They told me it was a demonstration model, something for a lecture. Poirot regarded him. Who told you? Mister.
Crane gave the instructions, but Sir Alistair paid me. Crane's face stayed composed, but a bead of perspiration appeared at his temple. Poirot straightened. We go now to the study door. If someone locked it from within, we shall see how. And if no one is within, then the lock itself will confess. We crossed the corridor, and with each step I felt the house drawing tighter, as if its walls listened too. The study door stood immaculate, its brass handle reflecting our anxious faces. Poirot knelt, not before the lock, but before the threshold, studying the carpet seam and the tiny notch where wood met frame. See, he murmured, the thread that clung downstairs, its twin lives here. Then he lifted his head and spoke toward the closed panels, very softly, as one speaks to a nervous animal. Open, I pray. Now. The study door did not open. And of course, doors in murder houses are rarely polite. But Poirot's request had not been meant for wood and brass. It was aimed at the mind that had arranged them. He rose and addressed Captain Barrington. Captain, you have force, I have patience. Between us the lock will not remain a mystery. Barrington inspected the handle, then the keyhole that was decorative only. Thumb turn inside, he muttered. No key, no bolt outside, unless there's a trick. Poirot's fingers hovered near the jamb. There is always a trick. Mr. Crane, what is on the other side of this wall? Crane swallowed. The bookcases, monsieur, built in. And behind the bookcases, a narrow service void for wiring pipes. Poirot's eyes brightened. Ah, wiring, like telephones. Barrington grunted. You think someone cut the line from there? Perhaps, Poirot said.
Or perhaps he merely wished you to think it cut. Captain, press here. He indicated a section of panelling beside the door, where the grain ran oddly straight. Barrington shoved. The panel gave with a muffled click. A narrow hatch opened, revealing darkness and the faint metallic smell of old electricity. That panel has not been opened in years, Crane whispered. That is why it opens so easily, Poirot replied. Neglect is a generous accomplice. Barrington slid his arm in, feeling along the void. After a moment he withdrew, holding a length of thin cord with a brass hook on the end. What the devil? Poirot's mouth tightened. A fisherman's toy. It can catch a thumb turn. Voss, hovering behind us, gave a small sound. That's clever. Poirot glanced at him. Clever is not the same as innocent.
I'm Monsieur Voss. He wrapped the cord in his handkerchief and studied the hook. A fleck of red sealing wax clung to it. The wax, I said, from the papers. Poirot nodded. Our second conversation becomes one. Barrington fed the cord back through the hatch, toward the lock. If it hooks the thumb turn, I can turn it from here. He worked by feel, then tugged, The door handle twitched faintly. Inside, something moved, a soft scuff across the floorboards. We all froze. Poirot's voice dropped. "Someone is there!" Barrington hauled again. The latch clicked and the door eased inward. Warm light spilled out, carrying cigar smoke and something sharper, spirit, and beneath it, that dry chemical bite from the salon. Barrington pushed the door wide and stepped in first. The study was dark leather and mahogany, a fire banked low, books to the ceiling. On the desk, papers lay scattered, and on the floor near the hearth, a man lay face down, one arm twisted beneath him. Mr. Crane made a strangled noise. Barrington knelt, then cursed. "Alive!" He rolled the man slightly. The face was flushed, eyes fluttering, mouth slack. It was Mr. Sloane, the barman. I stared. But he was downstairs. In the salon, Poirot finished, eyes narrowing. Or we thought so. He moved in, careful, sweeping the room with his gaze. The inner thumb turn was smeared with a greasy fingerprint, and a faint red smear marked the brass. Poirot pointed. "Drugged, not killed, to remove the witness, to borrow his shape." "Borrow his shape?" Barrington repeated. Poirot's eyes fixed on the mirror over the fireplace. "Earlier, Captain, you saw pale cuffs in the mirror. If a man wears a barman's jacket and keeps to the edges, oddly becomes invisible. Tonight someone wanted access to the tray, to the decanter, to the glasses, so he borrowed the barman." Cold crept up my spine. "Then the man we left with the guests—" Poirot turned sharply. "Hastings, run! Captain, follow! Mr. Crane, stay and watch this one. If he wakes, he must not wander. Monsieur Voss, come with me." We ran down the stairs, our footsteps now the very chaos Poirot had tried to forbid. But order had already been broken, by the murderer, not by us. In the salon, the scene had changed again. Lady Grant stood by the terrace window, clutching her fan. Sir Alistair was half out of his chair, face mottled. Dr. Markham hovered over the low table, and Madame Roux-Lemaire had risen at last, her eyes bright. And in the centre, where Mr. Sloane had been stationed, there stood a stranger in the barman's apron, holding the untouched glass in one hand and a small vial in the other. He smiled when he saw Poirot. "Bonsoir, monsieur," he said. "You are late." Poirot did not raise his voice. "Put it down." The stranger's fingers tightened around the vial. "Or what? You will deduce me to death?" Poirot's eyes were steady. "No," he said softly. "You will betray yourself. You have made one error that no lock, no window, no wax can hide." The stranger's gaze flicked just once to Madame Roux-Lemaire. For an instant the room held its breath. Madame Roux-Lemaire did not speak, yet something passed between them. Recognition, denial, then calculation. Dr. Markham took a step as if to snatch the vial, but Barrington's arm barred him. Sir Alistair whispered, "Who are you?" And the stranger laughed quietly, as though names were childish. Poirot's hands remained still. "You see," he murmured to me without turning, "how the guilty man looks not at danger but at necessity." Poirot saw it, and I saw too that Madame's hands were clenched not in grief but in rage. And necessity, Hastings, is always personal. Poirot took one step forward, not hurried, not threatening, yet somehow occupying the room as completely as a spotlight. The stranger's smile held, but it began to look like paint that had dried too quickly. "You have made one error," Poirot repeated, "and it is not the borrowing of the barman. That was clever. It is not the locking of the study. That was theatrical. It is not even the poison, which is always a little vulgar. Your error is that you chose the wrong audience." The man's eyes narrowed. "I don't care who watches." "Ah, but you do," Poirot said softly.
Oh, you cared enough to trap us into witnessing. You did not wish merely to kill. You wished to be understood. Understood by whom? The vial hovered above the untouched glass. Poirot's gaze slid to Madame Roux-Lemaire. By the one who matters. A faint sound escaped her, half breath, half scoff. You are romantic, Monsieur Poirot. No, madam. I am practical. Necessity tells the truth. He looked back at the man. Put it down. Captain Barrington can reach you before your arm returns to your side. Barrington shifted, ready. The man lifted the vial a fraction, weighing his options. Sir Alistair's voice cracked. For God's sake, what do you want? A correction, the stranger said lightly. Dr. Markham scoffed. Are you mad? Perhaps, the stranger replied. Or perhaps I'm simply ahead of you. Poirot's tone stayed calm. Hey, you came for the device. You failed because it is upstairs with Monsieur Voss. So you attempt a second death before our eyes to turn a mystery into a scandal. You talk too much, the stranger snapped and moved, quick as a cat, toward the terrace window. Barrington lunged. At the same instant, Lady Grant's fan snapped open like a weapon. She struck, not at the man's face, but at his wrist. The vial flew, arcing through lamplight, and shattered against the marble hearth with a sharp, wet crack. A sour, bitter smell rose immediately, catching at the throat. Ventilate, Markham coughed. Poirot was already at the latch, throwing the window wide. Cold rain air poured in, thinning the fumes. Barrington had the stranger pinned against the curtains, forearm across his chest. The man twisted, trying to bite, but Barrington's grip was iron. She, Lady Grant? Poirot said, voice steady, even as my eyes watered. You have quick hands. I dislike melodrama, she said hoarsely, and men who spill chemicals on carpets. Poirot's eyes flickered to the corpse, or men who die before you have finished with them. Her gaze flicked once toward the rug, then away. Poirot turned to Sir Alistair. Send Mr. Crane for a wet cloth and to keep the air moving, and tell Elsie to bring water, not brandy. Sir Alistair stared as though obedience were new, then stumbled toward the bell-pull. Barrington dragged the stranger into the centre, forcing him to his knees. The apron had slipped, revealing a dark suit beneath, neither servant nor guest. His hair was neat, his face sharp, his eyes amused even now. Name? Barrington demanded. The man shrugged. Names are for passports. Poirot crouched, so his face was level with the man's. Then let us speak of proofs. In the study, Mr. Sloane was drugged. The hook that turned the thumb-turn carried sealing wax. Upstairs, Monsieur Voss's papers were disturbed. Someone sought letters, something that could ruin Sir Alistair. There are no letters, Sir Alistair blurted, reappearing with Mr. Crane behind him. Poirot did not look away from the kneeling man. There are always letters, even if only between pride and desperation. Madame Roux-Lemaire spoke then, very quietly. My husband came to sell information. He thought himself a kingmaker. Markham stared. Sell what? Madame's eyes glittered. The device, Sir Alistair's toy. Étienne learned its value. He meant to profit. Sir Alistair sputtered. It was never his. Yet he had leverage, Poirot murmured. And now he is dead. The stranger's smile returned, smaller. She speaks well. Madame turned on him, voice like ice. Shut your mouth. Poirot's voice softened, but it cut. Ah, the heart reveals what the tongue denies. We have bodies that change the orbit of truth, one on the rug, one drugged in the study, and one kneeling here, alive but entangled. The stranger's eyes narrowed. Clever phrase. Poirot nodded once. You thought yourselves scientists of consequence, but you forgot the human element. The heart is not a predictable orbit. He rose, surveying the circle. The trembling Lady Grant, the rigid Sir Alistair, the pale Dr. Markham, the watchful Madame Roux-Lemaire. "We are near," he said, "so near that the murderer has had to show himself. Before the police arrive, we make one more experiment. We remove a variable." He turned to Barrington. "Captain, search his pockets with a cloth." Barrington grimaced, then used his handkerchief. From the man's inner pocket he drew a small packet wrapped in waxed paper, and from another a silver cufflink shaped like a star. Its mate, I realized with a chill, to the object Elsie had seen. Poirot's eyes sharpened. "Merci. Now tell me, monsieur, did you poison Monsieur Roux-Lemaire, or did you merely ensure that someone else did not fail?" The stranger's gaze slid to the packet, then to Madame again. For the first time, fear cracked his amusement. In the silence, the rain hissed at the window like applause, and somewhere below a bell rang unanswered for the coming police. Poirot let the question hang like a pendulum, forcing every eye to follow its slow arc.
Oh, the stranger's throat worked once. Captain Barrington kept a steady pressure on his shoulder, not painful, merely decisive. "You will answer?" Barrington said. The man gave a thin smile. "You already have your story." "I have possibilities," Poirot replied. "Stories are for novelists." His glance touched Miss Shaw, who flinched. "Who are you?" The man's gaze slid toward the terrace window, open to the wet night. "Call me Duhamel." Madame Roux-Lemaire's laugh was sharp. "That is not his name." Poirot's eyes flickered to her. "But it is the name he uses with you, perhaps." A faint colour rose in her cheeks, then vanished. "I do not know him." "And yet you recognize the glance," Poirot said. "Recognition is knowledge." Sir Alistair's hands trembled around the decanter. "This is insanity. My guest is dead."
"My study violated—" "Your guest," Poirot corrected softly, "was your negotiator. He died because negotiations are dangerous when everyone lies about the price." Dr. Markham leaned forward. "What is this device, Fenton Blythe? You said a demonstration, reframing consequence." Sir Alistair opened his mouth, then closed it. That small failure spoke louder than a speech. Poirot took the silver star cufflink between two fingers, using his handkerchief, and held it up. "This is the key to your locked door, not mere decoration. A clasp for a wire, a hook for a thumb turn." He turned it so the firelight caught a tiny engraving, a second, smaller star within the first. Voss breathed, "The maker's mark." "And it matches the fleck of wax on the hook," Poirot said. "The wax from the broken seals upstairs. Someone searched for letters, proof, leverage. Monsieur Roux-Lemaire had it, or promised it. He came tonight to sell. To whom? To Sir Alistair? To Dr. Markham? To Lady Grant? Or to you, Madame?" Madame Roux-Lemaire's eyes flashed. "My husband sold to anyone with coin." "And you?" Poirot asked gently. "Did you wish him to sell?" Her lips tightened. "I wished him to survive." Poirot nodded, as if that were an important correction. "Then you did not poison him?" Duhamel's smile cracked. "You're sure?" "Because poison on a rim requires certainty," Poirot replied. "It requires knowing which glass he will take." Yet Monsieur Roux-Lemaire refused Lady Grant's offered pour and poured for himself. That is not what a planner counts on. But a wife counts on it, because she has watched the arrogance 100 times. A murmur ran through the room like a draught. Lady Grant's fan trembled. "You accuse her?" "I accuse no one," Poirot said. "I eliminate. Love makes us clumsy. Tonight, the poison was not clumsy." Sir Alistair blurted, "Then who?" Poirot's eyes settled on Dr. Markham. The doctor's hands were too still, held behind his back as though he feared to see them. "Doctor," Poirot said softly, "you were the first to declare cyanide, the first to direct attention to the drinks. You offered the solution before we had the problem." Markham's jaw tightened. "Because I know chemistry." "And psychology," Poirot replied. "Enough to know that if you name a poison, the room stops thinking. Where were you when Mr. Sloane brought the tray?" "With Miss Shaw," Markham said. "She saw me." Cordelia nodded, but her voice wavered. "Only at first. Then I went to the window for air." Poirot's gaze softened toward her. And you saw—" She swallowed. "I saw Dr. Markham cross toward the sideboard. He picked up a napkin, I assumed." "Assumptions," Poirot murmured, "are the murderer's favourite servants." Markham's eyes darted to the shattered vial on the hearth. "That man has poison. Arrest him." "He'll be arrested," Barrington said, "but Poirot's asking questions first." Poirot nodded. "Because Monsieur Duhamel is not our murderer. He is an agent, a courier, perhaps a blackmailer. He came to retrieve the device, the letter's control. He drugged the barman to wear his skin, but he did not kill Monsieur Roux-Lemaire. If he had, he would not risk a second poisoning in front of witnesses. He would flee with his prize." Duhamel's lips twitched. "You flatter yourself." "No," Poirot said quietly. "I flatter your fear."
You are frightened of someone here?" Poirot stepped to the low table and, for the first time, lifted the untouched glass with his handkerchief. Beneath the lamp, on the rim, barely visible, was a faint, greasy arc, as though something had been painted and then half wiped away. "Lip balm," Lady Grant murmured without meaning to, and then went very still. "Not balm," Poirot said. "Something tasteless, meant to be unnoticed, applied with a cloth." His gaze slid to Dr. Markham's hands behind his back. "Doctor, show us your cuffs." Markham hesitated a fraction too long. Then he brought his hands forward. On one cuff, near the button, clung pale, chalky dust, and within it a tiny fragment of red wax. Poirot's voice was almost kind. "Voilà, you touched the hook, you touched the void, and you touched the glass." Markham's face drained.
"Oh, you can't prove—" "No, not yet," Poirot said. "But the police will. And in the meantime, you will tell me why you needed Étienne Roux-Lemaire dead before he could speak." Outside, sirens were still distant, but nearer footsteps sounded in the hall as Mr. Crane returned. Poirot's eyes never left Markham, inviting confession like a seat set for him alone. Dr. Markham made a small, hopeless sound, the sort a man makes when a theory collapses and leaves him standing in the rubble. Poirot waited, unmoving, allowing the silence to press upon the doctor until it became heavier than accusation. "You are very sure of yourself," Markham said at last, "because you saw wax on a cuff, dust on a sleeve. Coincidence?" Poirot's eyes were mild. "Coincidence is a word used by those who do not wish to arrange facts." "Doctor, why were you in the service void? Why did you need the hook? And why does sealing wax, wax from Monsieur Voss's packet, cling to your cuff?" Markham's gaze flicked to Voss, then to Sir Alistair. "Because Roux-Lemaire was going to expose the fraud." Sir Alistair flinched. "Fraud?" "The device," Markham spat. "Your second body problem. A parlour trick dressed as philosophy, an investment scheme wrapped in equations. Roux-Lemaire had the correspondence. He meant to sell it, to donors, to the papers, to anyone who would pay him twice, once for silence, once for noise." Poirot nodded slowly. "And you, Doctor, are not merely a lecturer. You are a partner." Markham's mouth tightened. "I wrote the technical prospectus. I gave it legitimacy." And so your legitimacy was held hostage by a man with leverage, Poirot said. Tell us the method. Markham's shoulders sagged. Yes, I didn't plan to kill him, he said. I only wanted the letters. I knew Alistair kept the cabinet in the study. I knew the service void. I helped install the wiring. It was easy to make a hook, to turn a thumb turn, to open a door without leaving the hall. I went up while you all argued downstairs. I found Voss's packet, sealed, arrogant, Roux-Lemaire's proof. I broke it. Voss blurted, My packet wasn't his. Quiet, Barrington growled. Markham continued, voice now steadier. I found the star cufflink in the packet. Wax got on my cuff. I took the letters, only to read them. Then I heard the commotion. Roux-Lemaire was down. I panicked. I thought someone had seen me, so I called Duhamel. All eyes went to the kneeling man. Duhamel's smile returned, weary. He paid for insurance. Poirot's voice was soft. So you did not poison Roux-Lemaire. Doctor! You tried to control what followed. Markham's face twisted. No, His hands clenched. He wasn't dead when I first reached the table. He'd fallen. He was gasping. I smelled the kirsch and that almond stench, and I knew someone had done it. But Roux-Lemaire's eyes were open, staring, and He shut his eyes. I wiped the rim. Poirot's head tilted. You wiped the rim. To remove the trace, Markham whispered. To keep the story simple. Cyanide in the drink. Tragic. Obvious. It buys time. And while everyone panics, I take the letters and leave. Poirot's gaze sharpened. Yet you did not leave. The phone was dead, Markham said bitterly. And then Duhamel arrived. Barrington tightened his grip on Duhamel. You cut the phone? Duhamel shrugged. I delayed help. It's what clients pay for. Poirot's tone cooled. You drugged Mr. Sloane, wore his apron, attempted a second poisoning to force the room to accept cyanide as the only story. Duhamel's eyes glittered. And you stopped me. Sir Alistair swayed toward a chair. Then who poisoned Roux-Lemaire? Poirot looked, at last, directly at Madame Roux-Lemaire. Madame, your husband did not drink liqueurs, you said, yet he drank tonight. Why? Her voice came out flat. Because he wished to refuse, because he wished to mock, because I asked him to be civil and he wished to punish me. Poirot nodded. Arrogance is a lever too. Someone knew which button to press. He turned to Mr. Crane. Butler, when did Monsieur Roux-Lemaire take his cigarette? Crane hesitated. After dinner, monsieur. In the hall, I gave him one. Poirot's eyes narrowed. From his own case? No, monsieur, Crane said softly.
From the silver case Sir Alistair keeps for guests. Sir Alistair blinked. The case is in the study. Poirot smiled without warmth, and the study was not as private as you believed. He stepped to the corpse, lifted the dead man's hand with his handkerchief, and revealed 2 fingers stained faintly yellow. A cigarette, treated. The bitter smell was a chorus, but the poison was in the smoke, absorbed quickly, leaving the drink as the scapegoat. Madame Roux-Lemaire whispered, Who would— Poirot's gaze went to Crane, then to Sir Alistair, then rested on Lady Grant, whose fan had stopped moving entirely. The one who could offer a cigarette without suspicion, he said quietly, and who had access to the study long before the guests arrived. Footsteps sounded in the hall below, brisk and official. Barrington looked toward the door. Poirot did not. He kept his eyes on Lady Grant, as if pinning a butterfly with a thought. Lady Grant, he said, will you be so kind as to tell us why you could not allow Monsieur Roux-Lemaire to sell your letters, your private correspondence, To the highest bidder? Lady Grant's lips parted, but no sound came. Her gloved fingers tightened on the fan until the ribs creaked. Sir Alister stared at her as though seeing, for the first time, the cost of such a guest. From downstairs a voice called, "Police!" and boots climbed the steps. Poirot lifted one hand to hold the moment in place. "Answer, madame," he said gently. "Silence is loud in this room. Tonight." Lady Grant did not answer at once. She stood very straight, chin lifted, fan clenched, as though it were the last solid thing in a room that had begun to tilt. When she spoke, it was with the faint surprise of someone hearing her own voice from a distance. "He would have ruined me." Sir Alister made a sound like a man struck unexpectedly. "Penelope, what are you saying?" "I am saying," Lady Grant replied evenly, "that Étienne Roux-Lemaire was a collector of weaknesses. Mine amused him." Poirot inclined his head, encouraging without indulgence. "The letters, madame?" "Yes, letters." Her mouth tightened. "Written years ago, when discretion was a costume I had not yet learned to wear. He found them through an intermediary. He wanted money first, influence second, and the pleasure of reminding me that reputation is merely a rumour one pays to maintain." Madame Roux-Lemaire's laugh was brittle. "You think my husband unique?" "No," Lady Grant said. "I think him careless." Poirot's voice was gentle.
And so you prepared." "I prepared to frighten him," she said, "not to kill him." Her eyes flicked to the body, then away. "I knew Sir Alister's guest case held cigarettes treated for demonstration. Something about absorption rates, a trifle. I took one. I meant to make him ill, to show him I was not helpless." Poirot nodded. "But poison is a poor student of intention." Her composure cracked at last. "He smoked too quickly. He laughed while he inhaled. And then he fell." She pressed the fan to her mouth. "When the room filled with that absurd almond smell, I thought, how convenient. Everyone would look at the glass." I said nothing. Sir Alister's voice shook. "You used my house." "You offered it," she said quietly.
"I.e., you offered a theatre for consequences." The police entered then, 2 officers and an inspector, bringing with them the ordinary weight of authority that makes lies feel suddenly small. Captain Barrington stepped aside, surrendering Duhamel without ceremony. Mr. Crane stood pale and correct. Dr. Markham, drained of bravado, sat heavily, hands slack. The inspector took in the scene, the body, the shattered vial, the ring of faces. "Mr. Poirot," he said, recognizing him with relief. "We were told—" Poirot bowed. "You arrive at the end, Inspector, but I will begin at the beginning, briefly." He spoke then with that precise kindness that never hurried and never lost its way, laying out the path as one might lay a ribbon, the cigarette from the guest case, the treated paper, the deliberate distraction of scent, or the second man's intervention to control the narrative, the wiped rim meant to simplify, the locked door designed to confuse, the borrowed uniform, the attempted second poisoning to force the room into a single story. "The murderer," Poirot concluded, "is Lady Penelope Grant, not because she is wicked, but because she believed herself cornered. She acted with preparation, not passion. That is why the method was indirect, the blame dispersed, and that is why it failed." The inspector listened, asked his questions, nodded. Lady Grant did not protest when they took her arm. She merely looked once at Madame Roux-Lemaire. "I am sorry," she said, and for the first time it sounded true. Madame Roux-Lemaire regarded her for a long moment. "So am I," she replied. "Ah, but not for you." Sir Alister sank into a chair as though the room had finally claimed him. "The device," he whispered. "My life's work." Poirot's eyes softened. is still your life, Sir Alistair. Whether it is work remains to be judged by men wiser than I." He glanced at Dr. Markham, now being gently but firmly escorted away. Ambition makes many bodies. When the police had gone, taking their answers and their accused with them, the house seemed suddenly smaller, emptied of performance. Rain tapped steadily at the windows. Someone closed the terrace door at last. Poirot adjusted his cuffs. "You see, Hastings, how a second body problem resolves." I frowned. "A second body?" "Yes. Not the corpse on the rug, though he matters, but the living body, the reputation, the device, the idea, whose gravity pulls others into collision. Or when men and women orbit such things, they forget that human beings do not move like equations." He looked down at the rug, now carefully covered. Monsieur Roux-Lemaire believed leverage made him immortal. Lady Grant believed preparation made her safe. Dr. Markham believed intelligence made him invisible. They were all mistaken. Sir Alistair rose unsteadily. "I shall close the salon." "For a time," Poirot agreed. "Ideas need rest, too." As we prepared to leave, Poirot paused by the doorway and turned back, taking in the quiet wreckage of elegance. "Order," he murmured almost fondly, "must be more than an appearance." Outside, the Thames slid on, indifferent as ever. Poirot took a breath of the damp air and smiled faintly. "Come, Hastings," he said. "The night has finished its argument."
"Oh, my little grey cells! Ah, they are ready for supper."